Yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned a couple of things of like those checks and balances or the accountability um people that you were working with in other capacities, just again kind of confirm that learning was occurring and was on pace. Um, and you mentioned a little bit about the grades, but how did you create a grade for your transcript? And then who issued the diploma?
Well, since we used an umbrella school, um, every semester, so like right now in August, I think on August 15th, my other child's, I have to, all her registration is due. So I'll list all the classes she's taking. And then however many credits I'm going to give her for that. So like algebra would be 1 credit, PE would be half a credit, whatever. And so I'll go in and put that in. And that's kind of up to you, but I usually follow a typical public school model for like how many credits you get for each thing. And then if they do more than say 1 credit, so like for Campbell, she's reading something and she fell into a deep dive of something, and so she read 5 or 6 extra books from what the curriculum suggested, and she was doing extra research, so we consider that an honors class. And lots of times in homeschool curricula, it'll say, okay, if you want this to be an honors credit, you can do this, this, and this. If you want it to be just a regular credit, do this, this, and this. And then even some will say, if you want to take the AP or the CLEP exam, then do these extra 3 weeks to prep, that kind of stuff. And they're laid out that way. But so we would kind of do that. And then at the end of each semester, it would, by a certain date, I think it's usually January something, I have to go in and report whatever grade I gave them. And so all of that goes into their database. And then when it came time to apply for colleges, they had the transcript. So it was just like everything I'd put in there. When that came time, we had some repetition. So like I had given her credit for piano for fine arts, and stuff like that. And went through the college application process. I was like, okay, well, you don't need that many fine arts credits. So we're going to take some of that off because it just so it would fit in one page and your application doesn't look ridiculous. So I was always able to edit that with my umbrella school and say, okay, we're going to take this one off and, whatever. And then they also issued the diploma. So whenever she graduated, they even have a ceremony where you can walk and do the whole thing. But Campbell didn't want to do any of that. She's like, that's goofy. I don't know anybody there. There's no reason to do that. Yeah. So we didn't do any of that, but there was the option you could pay like an extra fee and have a whole ceremony and all that stuff. And we didn't do that. My other one may decide she wants to and just leave it up to them. But that part was pretty easy. Don't you think? Yeah. Because all I did was report and attendance in our state. So every state is different. Some states you have to do a portfolio, and like keep some of their work to show it to somebody, and that's sort of like the checks and balances. But not here in Tennessee. It's pretty laid back. So it's just grades and attendance. And I know some states are even more laid back than that. I think Texas, you don't even have to do anything. Like you report nothing. So it's kind of depends on your state laws and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. So the next question really is, so you've got this diploma, you've edited some transcripts and preparing for college life. I mean, Tennessee to Harvard, that's like a not in your backyard kind of a school by any means. So how did you prepare for the college application and transition to college life? Because that's a big move.
Well, first, I don't remember when we started making the college list. Was it your actual junior year before? I think we started just making a list of schools she was interested in, things she'd heard, if they'd had blind students before. Because we learned real quick in our district it's not fun to be the first and only that they've ever had, because then you're trying to teach people to teach you. Yeah. So we wanted to find somewhere that had a Braille STEM student recently. So we tried to research that through different groups that we were in, parent groups. She was in some student groups, things like that. And then so we had a list of about 20 schools. Yeah. And starting out. Yeah. And just before we leave the subject, a note of emphasis to any students watching this: please don't have any ideals of being a pioneer in whatever school you want to go to, because I mean, if you have to do that, then fine, you can do it. But if there are other options where
blind students have paved the way before you, do it, because then the most challenging aspect of your experience will most likely be your academics, and that's how it should always be. You don't need to spend, when you're in college, you're too busy to spend 90% of your time teaching them how to teach you. So I've heard other students say, well, it'd be nice to be a pioneer. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. I was my whole life, and it is not fun. So if you don't already know that, please
At least
consider that.
I understand some people who are doing majors that, maybe 6 schools in the whole country offer, thankfully Campbell was doing applied mathematics, and every school just about offers that. So that wasn't a big problem. The problem was finding a school who had a STEM major. A lot of blind students go into humanities. Well, a lot of people in general go into humanities, and they are fine accommodating that because you can do everything on a Braille display, and there's no paper graphs needed or anything like that. It's beyond your basic math, whatever your undergrad requirements are. So anyway, finding a school, like we did a few college visits, starting around 15.
Yeah.
And talked to different people so we would meet with admissions, like a normal college tour, but then also meet with disability services at the school and talk with them about, and just kind of get a feel for if they knew anything. Like I called a few local schools here, and it was like deer in the headlights. Well, I'm sure we can get Braille. We've never had to do it before, but I mean, surely we can, So when that happened, that was immediate, cross them off the list, because we're not doing that again. But we were able to find about 20 schools that did have experience and that we felt were good options. And then we narrowed that down to about 16. Right. And then so there was a webinar. I don't know, I must have done a Facebook ad. I don't even know how I found out about it, but there was a webinar about college admissions for parents to attend. And it was like 3 or 4 days, 3 or 4 hours a night. And so I did that. And then if you shared that on your Facebook, it put you in a drawing to win a year with the college advisor. So I won that. And so we were able to work with her, this college advisor, for a year. And kind of what she did was just help you stay on schedule. Like your essay for the school's due here, and your application is due here, and do this. And
yeah, she would also proofread your essays and suggest edits, and suggest, which you may have done, a few different drafts of your personal statement, or tried out a few different prompts. Yeah. And she would suggest, which one to actually submit. So that was very helpful.
Yeah. And I mean, it's expensive if you have to pay for it. Thankfully I won that, and it was nice. I think, like, for my other child, I probably won't have to use that because I've done it once, because I already know the whole process. But as far as prepping for moving to school, I think homeschool just kind of naturally did that.
Yeah, I think so too. And also, going to summer camps, I was already acquainted, at least, with living away from home for certain amounts of time. And so I figured, I'd get there and I would do some O&M when I first got to campus to make sure I could get around everywhere. I would, I had housing accommodations, like, to have a single room because I have light sensitivity. So, that was the most special thing I had, honestly. And then some dining hall accommodations to help me navigate the buffet situation. But adjusting to living there wasn't hard for me. I think it would be harder if you hadn't had O&M or tech training in high school, because then you would have to be learning all of that at the same time as you were trying to learn your actual academics. And I've seen people do that, and it's very, very difficult. But I thankfully ultimately had really good training in high school. So I felt like I was well equipped for dorm life. And of course, like, before we went, we kind of just, I mean, I knew how to do most chores around the house, but we kind of just reviewed how to clean the bathroom and all of that kind of thing, just in case. But it ended up working out really well once I got to my dorm, because we had an ensuite bathroom, and so we all kind of just divided up chores as far as cleaning the bathrooms, and so we each had one or two things to do, and if
It's kind of like we did at home.
yeah, I mean, that's how it was. It was almost exactly how chores worked at home. So,
And I'll say, as a parent, if you do not teach your children to do chores, because it is easier sometimes to just do it yourself, but when they get older, it's nice to have help. And so I'm all about it. And I think, like, I had friends in school who had never vacuumed, and I had a friend who had never washed dishes, and she came here and it was my night to wash dishes, and my dad was like, well, you can help, and taught her to wash dishes. She was like 17. Well, for a blind kid, they can't just watch somebody do it, so they're going to need hands-on experience of all that stuff. And if you skip that, and it's supposed to be part of the expanded core curriculum in public school, but I mean, in real life, that everybody is stretched so thin, you rarely get to that stuff. I do know that sometimes people have luck, getting that stuff done in the summers, or if they can get that approved, but our district did nothing in the summers, so that would not have happened here. So I think doing that at home, and then homeschool gave us that time, because when she was in public school, she came home when she had 4 hours of homework. And I worked from 3 to 10 at night, so I wasn't even here when she was here. So, it would have been very difficult if we had homeschooled to get all those skills learned. She would have had to learn them from the grandparents.
Mhm.
And you know how grandparents are. Like, my dad would still be spoon feeding Campbell if I hadn't walked in on him when she was like 7, and he was giving her a spoonful of food. And I'm like, Dad, she can feed herself. Grandparents will spoil them rotten. So
yeah, thankfully I have both my grandmothers they like to cook and like to have me help sometimes, and so I got some of that experience too. Also, before I forget, make sure your kid knows how to take over-the-counter medicine before leaving home.
yes.
So be sure to tell them that they cannot take Tylenol to get rid of cold symptoms. I had one of my friends try to do that for congestion. Does
Just
not work.
regular Tylenol.
No cold medicine added. Maybe have a good vitamin regimen going, so that when viruses do pass through, you don't catch everything. Because I only got sick once per semester, and the second semester was a really mild, like 24-hour thing. So just be careful with that. Be smart as far as over-the-counter medicine and keeping yourself healthy goes, because it'll serve you well.
Yeah, it's funny the things they don't learn, because like your mom just gives you whatever you need to take and you take it. You don't really explain how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why we explained how it all worked. Probably because Campbell was sick all the time when she was little.
Yeah, and also I was curious just in general about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So even when I was little, if I got some sort of, I got pneumonia at one point, I wanted to know all about pneumonia. So I think I was just naturally curious. So we didn't have to make an effort to teach me those kinds of things. But before you go to college, you really need to know how to take over-the-counter medicine, because chances are there'll be a virus of some sort that sweeps through the entire population like it did with us.
Yeah.
So, be prepared.
I cannot thank you both enough for all the wealth of resources, the wealth of knowledge, all of the nuggets that are so helpful and so insightful. Is there anything else on our last video that you would like to share, or anything that maybe you haven't thus far?
I think the only thing I would say is, if you're considering homeschooling for whatever reason, like for us, we kind of had to do it for a year at least. But if it's always kind of been in the back of your mind, or you've seen another homeschool family that you think, I would love to do that, just do it for a year and see what happens. You know, you can always go back to public school or private school or whatever. And just take it 1 year at a time. That's kind of what we did. And then we found out that we loved it. And it would be really hard to go back at this point just because we have enjoyed it so much. So I think don't be afraid and think, you know, I could never educate my child, much less a child with a braille reader.
Right. And keep in mind, I think that homeschooling, at least for me, has been more like college than public school ever could have been. In fact, there are some things about college that are actually easier than homeschooling, because everything's already laid out for you. You just basically have to do the work and show up to class. So don't be afraid that you're not going to be prepared for college if that hasn't already been emphasized enough.
Yeah, I think it's been great for us and for our whole family.
Yeah. I'm just honored to have the opportunity to interview you both and share all of your knowledge with everyone else who's considering or questioning or wanting to know more. So I can't thank you both enough for your time and your effort on this.
Well, thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you.